You can, thank you. We're beginning to record the session. So I will, first of all, help to welcome you and explain the structure that we'll be using today. But I do want to thank Caitlin for all the good work she's done in getting us set up and connected. And I also am happy that Annette Williams is here, who is our new chair of the Women's Spirituality Program. And we're very happy that she's here, and she has a few words of greetings to begin the dissertation that we have with Marcelle, Dissertation Defense.
Thank you, Mara. And welcome to everyone. Welcome and big congratulations, Marcelle, on getting to this point.
Thank you.
It feels wonderful. I'm feeling wonderful to be sitting here and waiting to hear your defense. And Teresa Ugar, thank you, and Elizabeth Ersick, thank you for serving on her committee. And I'm looking forward to hearing you and to your questions. And I will pass it back over to Mara. A wonderful defense.
So this is a first to be so virtual in our dissertation defense, but we're here for Marcelle Williams, who is defending her dissertation in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the PhD in philosophy and religion with a concentration in women's spirituality. And the title of her dissertation is a very important topic, so it's a bit long. Women's Ordination in the United States, a study of women's struggle in the Roman Catholic Church, Episcopal Church, and Evangelical Lutheran Church in the United States. So this is what we're here to have Marcelle present, and then we'll have the opportunity for her committee to ask questions, and anyone in the audience can do the same. We are recording this, so people who weren't able to be here today in person can access this at another time as a special example to the rest of our doctoral students, as well as other people who can learn from Marcelle and what she has to offer now that she has completed the study. I want to welcome Elizabeth Ersick, and she is a professor here with us in women's spirituality at CIIS. Teaches for us several courses. She is also a professor of philosophy and religious studies at Mesa Community College in Arizona. And she has recently published a very wonderful book, which I brought with me. This is Women, Ritual, and Power. Let's see if I can get the camera angle. Women, Ritual, and Power, with a wonderful subtitle, which is Placing Female Imagery of God in Christian Worship. So she also focuses on the importance of women in the church and different denominations of the Christian church. And I'll have each of them say a few words, but also I just wanted to mention that Elizabeth Ersick is chair of the women's programming for the National American Academy of Religion, and she has recently been appointed to the board of the Parliament of the World's Religions, and will be doing good work for women in religion in that capacity as well. And also that she is a keynote speaker, public speaker in a number of different venues, including recently Seneca Falls, which is starting scholarships on feminism. So scholarship in feminism. So please say hello, Elizabeth, and a few more words about yourselves.
Mara, she isn't, we don't see her picture.
Yeah.
No, apparently we lost Elizabeth.
She's connected. Let's see.
What should we do? See her name?
Oh, there she is.
Hi, it's Elizabeth. I apologize. My screen keeps going. Is it flashing for you guys?
Yeah, I think that might be, if it's angled towards a fluorescent light, sometimes that can happen with a webcam. If there's a way to slightly alter the angle in which you are sitting, I know that that's an odd request. Ah, there we go. There we go.
That's why I dropped off and came back in. Okay, thank you.
So Mara just introduced you.
Change the presenter to.
Okay.
Oh, Elizabeth, if you didn't hear what I said, I gave you an introduction. I mentioned your teaching for CIIS and for Mesa Community College as professor of religious studies and women's spirituality. I said that you were on the American Academy of Religion national chair for women's programming, and also newly appointed to the board of the Parliament of World Religions, and recently at Seneca Falls. And if there's anything you wanted to add to that, to introduce yourself and say hello, please take some time to do that.
Oh, well, thank you, Mara. Really, you covered it. The book that I published that you're using in your class right now. And really just 2 hours ago, I was called by the President of the Parliament and asked to chair the Women's Task Force, which will run the Women's Assembly at the next Parliament. So exciting times coming.
Great, that's wonderful. I know you also teach women in world religions, and that's where I'm using your text this term. And now Teresa Ugar is with us, and she too is a professor of religious studies, but with a focus on feminist theology. She's at California State University, Los Angeles, and she too has recently published a very important book, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, a feminist reconstruction of biography and text. And so this has, she has the support and I believe the introduction of not only Elizabeth Schussler Fiorenza, but also Rosemary Radford Ruther has written the introduction. And so she is a very important scholar joining us here with a specialty in the Catholic tradition. So welcome, Teresa. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Well, I feel very fortunate because here at Cal State LA, this is the first semester that we are giving, that our women's studies program is beginning. So I wish that it had happened sooner, but you know what, but we now have a women's studies program. So I'm teaching a women's studies, gender and sexuality class. But I'm in 3 departments. So I'm in Chicano studies, the Americas, race and gender, but I'm also in liberal studies for gender and science. But I'm excited to be here. So
Mara, you're muted. There we go.
Okay, I want to thank the committee members for your mentoring for Marcelle and reading of the dissertation and providing your input and guidance. And so now we want to invite Marcelle to speak for about 45 minutes, presenting her work, her research, and her findings. And then we will have a round of questionings by the committee members and then by anyone in the audience. So Marcelle, please go ahead and tell us about your research.
All right, well, thank you so much. And I just want to thank the committee for all your support over the last couple years. I think it's been about 2 years. So I just thank you so much. And I also want to thank Mara and the department for allowing us to do this via the internet and the video conference. I appreciate that for my little one who is asleep upstairs. So, but all right, to begin, this is the defense of my dissertation, Women's Ordination in the United States, a comparative study of women's struggle in the Roman Catholic Church, Episcopal Church, and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. The topic of women's ordination brings together several areas, including the secular, socio-political, spiritual, and feminist movement into the religious sphere. What is fascinating about the topic of women's ordination that has compelled many to research and write on the topic, including myself, is the way women have continued to struggle for authority and leadership within the Christian faith, and in the face of adversity have continued to press onwards for their own spiritual authority. In the early Christian church, women were present and included in leadership. But as the church moved outside the home and into the public sphere, which followed the Greco-Roman form of law, women were pushed out and subjugated to roles that left them as bystanders. This topic is of great importance as it highlights an area where women have been left out for far too long. Since the 19th century in the United States, women have been working for full inclusion as spiritual leaders in the religious field. To this day, several denominations have ordained women to the priesthood and have even had women presiding bishops who lead at the highest level within their denomination. The three denominations in this study were chosen because they have a shared history with the Roman Catholic Church and share some ideological, theological, and hierarchical structures. The three denominations are all sacramental, meaning they celebrate an outward and visible symbol of an inward spiritual grace. These denominations also have a history of the struggle for women's ordination. The path to ordination for these three denominations provides a comparison of the level of difficulty for women getting access to ordination. Beginning with the least restrictive is the Evangelical Lutheran Church, which adopted women's ordination in 1970. Then the Episcopal Church adopted in 1976. And lastly, the Roman Catholic Womenpriests movement, which began ordaining women in 2002. This study explored the main question, what are women's early 21st century experiences of ordination and ministry? More precisely, what has been the personal and professional experience of women's ordination in the United States in these three Christian traditions? This study seeks to locate women who pioneered the women's ordination movement and those who were also at the beginning of their careers and listen to those stories of ministry. Through the use of personal narratives of women who have struggled for women's leadership and ordination, this dissertation gives a voice to the marginalized experience of women in these faith traditions. Personal narrative is the key component to this study as it allows women to voice their hardships and triumphs. This study uses technical terms associated with the Christian faith, ordination, and the profession of ministry that needs further definition. The three Christian denominations discussed in this study have many similarities among terminology, but they can also differ slightly. Tradition can refer to sacred or apostolic teachings, customs, and beliefs that have been passed down or theological belief. Denomination refers to a recognized autonomous branch of the Christian Church. A particularly important reference is how this study views the movement of the Roman Catholic Womenpriests within and in comparison to the Roman Catholic Church. Many aspects have continued within RCWP, which is the Roman Catholic Womenpriests, including apostolic succession, liturgy and worship formation, and maintaining many beliefs and customs. There are, however, differences which include foremost the ordination of women. Secondly, RCWP seeks to renew the Roman Catholic Church through inclusivity and acceptance of all individuals. The term used for priest among all three denominations is the equivalent and refers to the same position and title. The term ordain relates to the terminology of ordination, which means to confer holy orders and make someone a priest. Pinking of the church is a term that has come about organically. It is a term used to refer to the growing number of women clergy in the church. My own personal standpoint and relationship to the topic is that I am a Euro-American with a background and strong identity as a second-generation Italian-American from a Roman Catholic family. I also attended an Episcopal school all through grade school, where I saw and discovered a similar denomination to that as my Roman Catholic faith. The difference in experiencing the Episcopal faith was that it was led by women in worship. This was vitally important to exploring alternative understandings of how faith is practiced in other denominations and alternative leadership styles. I was constantly struggling with the concept of an all-male clergy from the Roman Catholic faith and wanted to understand more about theology and religion. Next, moving on to literature review. The literature used within this study came out of several areas, including such sources as feminist theology scholars from fields of history, archaeology, ethics, sociology, scriptural, and liturgical studies. Several studies have been included that also examine the qualitative and quantitative data that relates to female clergy. Literature from each denomination was discussed, as well as a general overview of the topic of women's ordination, in addition to relevant methodologies. The overview and breakup of the literature into the three denominations provided a glimpse into the expansive array of scholarship that has come before this study and to locate the study within the Christian theological tradition. Beginning with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, there have been 2 studies conducted by the Church to analyze various aspects of ordination for men and women. The first was conducted in 1995, 25 years after the first female ordination. This study found out to find if women waited longer than men for their first call, as it was widely believed and found to be true. The authors have concluded that women generally have to take into consideration other areas that men generally do not, including a family, where their spouse's profession is located, and the job location, which all impact where women take a placement. 10 years later, in 2005, there was an expanded study that showed that there are considerable differences between ministry life for female and male clergy. The study found that white males are more likely to serve as senior pastors than other clergy and more likely to receive compensation above synod guidelines. One area that balanced out was the wait time for first call. In 2015, a third study was conducted, but the results have not been published. Overall, the ELCA has maintained a continued presence in studying the working conditions and issues of their female clergy. The other denominations do not have the same in-depth review of the differences facing male and female clergy. In the Episcopal Church, the question of women's ordination had been studied prior to their acceptance without any move forward for 2 general conventions. This tumultuous origin of women's ordination in the Episcopal Church is described in Mary Donovan's work, Women Priests in the Episcopal Church, The Experience of the First Decade, which reviews the important moments for the women's ordination movement and the close association that the secular feminist movement had within the Church. Written in 1988, after the vote to allow women to become bishops, she was seeking to uncover and understand how women priests were adapting to their new role and the overall acceptance of women priests in the Church. Olive Renee Bozarth, one of the Philadelphia 11, narrates her story in Woman Priests, A Personal Odyssey, about their journey towards priesthood and life after ordination. Written in 1978, Bozarth's account is unique and gives a glimpse into the personal experience and struggle for ordination in the Church as a participant in the first irregular ordinations. These accounts provide a historical source, but also show how women have moved through the hierarchy of the Church since 1977. For the Roman Catholic Womenpriests, I focused on literature that supported women's ordination from the Roman Catholic viewpoint and female experience within the Roman Catholic Church. Additionally, relevant studies that discuss the hierarchical structure of the Roman Catholic Church were evaluated to understand how women have systematically been excluded from leadership. Gary Macy and Karen Jo Torjensen, both historical theologians, investigate in their works the hidden history of women's ordination and women or priests, explore the subject of women's roles in the early and medieval Church. Macy defines the meaning of ordination and examines what ordination meant during the different periods in time. Torjensen examines the archaeological evidence, textual reference, and tradition of women's leadership in the early Church. Through their work, we can see the development of the denigration of women's roles in the Church and how it was systematically and structurally created into an all-male clerical system. Their work is important for this discussion of women's ordination, as it allows scholars to trace the changes in women's roles throughout Church history and the differing meanings throughout time. Many women have been using feminist hermeneutics to recreate and restructure what the early Church would have looked, acted, and thought like. It is through this historical discovery that modern women are able to claim the right to roles within the Church, and the women in the Roman Catholic Womenpriests movement have been doing this since 2002. From a modern-day historical perspective, Sister Mary Jeremy Dagler writes from the standpoint as a Sister of Mercy and Order of the Roman Catholic Female Religious Congregations. She examines in her work Incompatible with God's Design. Dagler composes a complete historical account of the women's ordination movement in the United States. She begins with the early actions of the women's movement for ordination from the Second Vatican Council up to the present. Dagler brings together the historical accounts of the movement and the practical understanding that women are working within the Church, but not given the professional and ministerial roles and rights of their male counterparts. In the general overview of women's ordination, Maureen Felder creates a dialogue with women in her work, breaking through the stained glass ceiling, to illustrate the various arenas where women are working through interviews that offer a glimpse into the mechanics of interview research while providing a rich history of where women's leadership has developed. Barbara Brown-Zeekman, Adair Loomis, and Patricia Ma-Yin Chang come together in their work, Clergy, Women, and Uphill Calling, about women's ordination and the significant development of women entering church roles. Their work seeks to understand the experiences of ordained women, having locate those experiences in empirical data. Using quantitative and qualitative methods, they evaluate the many nuances of clergy life and how these engage with women. This study was significantly useful for this research as it provided a quantitative background and overview for understanding how women manage their lives once they have been ordained. In the relevant methodologies, Linda Alcoff and Elizabeth Potter bring together an academic understanding of the intersectionality of feminism and epistemology. Using their authority as philosophers and feminist researchers, their work, Feminist Epistemologies, includes an analysis of methodologies for the context of theory. Through the use of feminist methodology, the authors critique traditional methods, and they present, through the use of deconstruction and reconstruction, how a holistic approach can be utilized. In Women's Ways of Knowing, the development of self, voice, and mind, the location of women's voices and how women know what they know is discussed, uncovering a unique method in epistemological development. This theory comes from a feminist viewpoint and using the author's own talents as women create a collaborative way to listen to women's experience. Feminist methodology provides academic research, a way to utilize holistic practices that situate feminist theories to deconstruct patriarchal and hierarchical thinking, while building up ideas that reconstruct equality for all. This study uses a holistic approach that brings together women's voices and narratives. Through the use of women's narratives, this study demonstrates the authority and knowledge that women possess. This study fills a gap in the literature, as there is no study that combines these three denominations and examines the longitudinal careers of women from the pioneer generation until present time, that also compares the different generations of ordained women. The goal of this study is to understand the changes that have occurred in the last 50 years for ordained women on a personal and institutional level, and to promote the ordination of women in the Roman Catholic Church. There exist studies on the quantitative institutional realities for ordained women within Protestant traditions. However, these studies usually are single denominational studies or fail to include qualitative data where we can hear women's voices. The theoretical frameworks and methods. This study is situated in feminist scholarship and subject matter of women's personal and professional lives, and it was only logical that I use a feminist methodology and framework to structure and build upon the experiences of the women that come out of this study. This study is situated in a feminist standpoint framework. Sandra Harding defines feminist standpoint theory as empowering oppressed groups by valuing their experiences. In this study, I sought to empower female clergy through the use of their own voice and their story, both from inside the institution and from their personal and home life experiences. By examining the political structure, or as defined in this study, the religious institution of each denomination, I was able to locate each of the women in the system they are embedded as I examined the dominant beliefs and practices. One might ask, are women still disadvantaged within these religious institutions? And the answer is yes. Although women have been granted access to ordination within the Lutheran and Episcopal churches, they are still disadvantaged and experience various degrees of oppression, as women have not been elevated to the same location and status as ordained men. Standpoint theory allows for the various ways women experience the world and interact within society, negating the dualistic assumptions of patriarchy for assumptions that are holistic and speak to varied belief systems. Narrative inquiry was used as a methodology and interviewing process. Narrative inquiry examines the story of an individual, whether through text or oral history. In this case of this study, oral in-person interviews were conducted in a semi-structured format. This methodology was the most logical form of interviewing for this type of study, as it allowed for the interpersonal and embodied connection of in-person interviewing that upholds the feminist standpoint theory of collegiality. A list of questions was drafted and used to help guide the interview. Room was left open for the women participants to discuss areas that were of importance to them, their church, and their roles. After each interview was conducted, a transcript was created and the participants were given the ability to change or clarify any areas. Data analysis of the transcript was conducted using the voice-centered relational method developed by Carol Gilligan. The relational method involves the researcher analyzing the transcript 4 separate times to listen to the plot to hear various voices from the participant and the researcher's response to the interview. In this study, I read through the transcripts 6 times, which helped me to pull out subtle themes. Through this various method, various voices appeared from each participant, but also several themes developed as well. Some expected themes were the ordination process, seminary, and leadership within the church, but other areas that came out of this process included titles for the women and the notional idea of pinking in the church. This study had 12 women participants, 3 from each denomination. The women participants in this study 4 from each denomination. The women participants in this study came from a variety of backgrounds, including age, sexuality, family structures, location, and type of call. The women ranged from pioneers and recently ordained women in age from 33 to 69. All of the women were of Euro-American descent. 4 of the women identified as non-heterosexual. All of the women are married to a partner, and 8 of the women have children. The women held a range of professional positions ranging from solo ministry in small congregations and lead pastor in large congregations with a staff. In addition to diocesan and academic appointments, the women are well diverse in the type of positions they have held, even though racially they are not diverse at all. This was an area of concern, but ultimately it reflects the state of the denominations. My findings, the denominations. The differences between each denomination are significant when examined through the lens of statistical data. The Evangelical Lutheran Church is double the membership size from the Episcopal Church, and while structured slightly different given regional variations and the difference between dioceses and synods, the 2 Protestant churches fall short in comparison to the size of membership and parishes of the Roman Catholic Church. On the other hand, the Roman Catholic Womenpriests movement membership cannot be compared statistically to the other denominations for memberships and congregations, as they do not collect those statistics. While the statistics may isolate each denomination based on membership or faith communities, the statistics are helpful in determining where women are located. Oh no, they left. Okay.
I say we wait till she comes back.
Yes, I'm going to stop. I can't hear you, Mara, but I know I stopped. Okay, great. I'm going to keep going.
Good.
Okay. Perfect. While the statistics may isolate each denomination based on membership or faith communities, the statistics are helpful in determining where women are located in each institutional structure, as we can see a significant difference in women's leadership between the Lutheran and Episcopal denominations, whereas the Roman Catholic Womenpriests are solely composed of women. The Lutheran and Episcopal denominations have significant work ahead to create a more just and equitable environment for women working as priests and within leadership positions. This study found that between the 3 denominations, the women participants have similar personal and professional experiences of ordination. Although there are nuanced differences to how each of the women arrives at their ministry career, many of the women retell similar stories. The women mostly stayed in denomination in which they grew up in. 3 of the women changed denominations. Several of the women describe witnessing women in leadership positions within their congregations as children. For some, this was their mothers, and still others experienced strong female role models outside of the church. This was influential for all of the women, regardless of age and denomination. The women participants also uphold the statistics of women's ordination as it relates to race and position type. This study had no participants that identified as a woman of color, which highlights the low level of diversity within these denominations. Examining the traditions through the statistical evidence available, each institution in this study lacks significant diversity among clergy and congregations. The traditions outwardly support persons of color and anti-discrimination, but translating statements of belief into practice is easier said than done. One of the largest issues facing these traditions is the institutional capability of bringing a more diverse population into clerical roles and communities. One reason why these three traditions may have a low-level participations by persons of color is the presence of historically Black Protestant churches and the desire for continued worship within those communities. In 2013, the Lutheran Church had 212 women clergy identifying as African American, American Indian, Arab, Asian, Latino, or multiracial, making up only 5.5% of all ordained women. The Episcopal Church does not provide statistics on racial diversity for clergy or church members. At the 2015 General Convention, the Episcopal Church elected its first Black presiding bishop, the Right Reverend Michael Curry, who was preceded by the first female presiding bishop, Catherine Jefferts Schori. Without the knowledge of the current status of clergy statistics, there is no way for the Church to constructively manage areas that need education, restructuring, or adapting to new methods in ministry. There are likewise no statistics for race from the Roman Catholic Womenpriests. While RCWP considers itself to be inclusive, this would be a continued area to bring women of all backgrounds into the organization. In addition to enhancing research surrounding the issue of racial diversity, each of the denominations have taken great strides to accept lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning clergy and members. The ELCA voted in 2009 to allow dioceses to call and ordain gay and lesbians who are in committed relationships. While the ELCA joined several other mainline Protestant denominations in moving forward with supporting gay and lesbian clergy, the ELCA does allow each congregation to create their own constitution and decide whether they will call these individuals. The women participants in the ELCA have had varied reactions with this newly adopted sexuality social statement. For one of the participants, this was her opportunity to serve within the church officially. For another, who previously worked within diocesan leadership, this stance made her job more difficult in relationships with congregations, as they could individually make a stance against calling women or non-heterosexual individuals to an open position. In the Episcopal, the Right Reverend Jean Robinson was the first openly gay bishop in 2003. It wasn't until 2009, however, that the church officially adopted that all persons, regardless of gender or sexuality, could be called to leadership. In 2012, the church again addressed the issue of homosexuality, but this time providing clergy with the right of blessing for same-gender relationships. In 2015, it was voted to amend the Episcopal Church's marriage rite, allowing same-sex couples the sacrament of marriage. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Primate of the Church of England, has come out strongly opposed to the decision of the Episcopal Church's House of Bishops, but this is reflective of the current state of the Church of England, as they have continually opposed homosexuality in the church for clergy and members. One participant and her English partner, who is also a priest, were forced to make a decision of whether staying priests, married, and living in the United States, or living in England and not serving as priests. This was a difficult decision, and ultimately they chose one another and their profession. Opposing the view of the Roman Catholic Church's condemnation of homosexuality is the Roman Catholic Womenpriests, who state, quote, "Women priests and deacons must be the rainbow. We reflect the people we serve, married, celibate, domestic partners, heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and transgendered," end quote. All of the communities and parishes of RCWP are inclusive and open to all members, ordained and lay. This study reflects the growing support of homosexual clergy and its members, with 4 women participants identifying as non-heterosexual. Within this study, roughly half of the women from the pioneer generation did not grow up and experience women in leadership positions within their congregations. For the younger women in this study, they grew up with the knowledge of women working as priests or having seen them firsthand. For them, there was no boundary when it came to the desire for ordination. For many of the participants, they recall having felt a desire towards ordination as small children, and even one recalled playing church where she gave sermons as young as 3 years old. For some women, they resisted the call to the priesthood, knowing what difficulties lay before them. For most of the Roman Catholic women priests, they acted on their calls to the priesthood later in life after successful careers inside and outside the church. It is their journey that shows us the importance and legitimizing experience that claiming a call can provide fulfillment, no matter at what age. Claiming their call has empowered them to continue to confront the Roman Catholic Church on the practices of discrimination. Sarah Santilles states, quote, "Women denied access to ordination, either by their denominations or by individual people in authority, have used their sense of call to sustain them in the struggle," end quote. It is the struggle of RCWP and all other ordained women that gives them the courage and strength to continue fighting for a future of women in the church in which women are fully accepted, embraced, and supported. Many of the women describe similarities between the experiences of embracing their call and the effect it has on personal relationships. Two of the participants described the confusion their parents felt when they decided to enter ministry. Even though they had attended church their whole lives, their parents did not anticipate their chosen profession. Another participant describes her mother's concern over her daughter's future with the church as the status of institutional policies towards LGBTQ clergy were unfavorable while she was attending seminary. Another area of concern for two women participants was the possibility of being unmarried and working as a priest. The women felt that they would have a harder time finding a spouse after ordination. The participants reflected that clergy women often have difficulty finding spouses if they have not done so prior to ordination. Dating as a clergy person is a difficult role to undertake and one that may not be favorably looked upon by a congregation. Within this study, regardless of sexuality, all 12 participants are married to a partner, and most were in committed relationships or married prior to being ordained. The institutional findings. This study has found that the experience among ordained women within the institutional church is similar between the three denominations. The institutional encounter for ordained women begins during their initial call to the priesthood, which begins with a formalized process of entering candidacy and fulfilling the requirements set by the institution. All of the women, except for one who had equivalent experience, have a higher education degree, usually a Master's of Divinity, that has provided them with the necessary education and formation for the professional position as a priest. All of the participants agree that seminary education has consistently and inadequately prepared seminarians for the practical conditions they will meet upon entering and leading a congregation. Administrative skills, business management, human resources, and conflict resolution are areas that the women believe need more attention within seminary education. The participants acknowledge gratitude for their seminary education for the skills they need, such as theology, preaching, and counseling. However, giving seminarians adequate parish administration coursework and hands-on experience during intern residencies is necessary to prepare them to move into leadership and solo positions. One participant had the foresight to spend her undergraduate career studying nonprofit management and gain skills that she otherwise would not have been prepared. All of the women priests have had similar ordination rites and public ceremonies where they are consecrated and set apart as clergy. The process towards ordination is similar, but each denomination has a different path. All require the higher education degree and formation. They also require reflection, discernment, and internships such as a curacy or residency. Ordination affirms the role of leader, minister, advisor, and the divine made present through the confirming of the gifts of the individual for public ministry. Within RCWP, some ordinations are kept secret for security and for publicity reasons, but more and more women are publicly announcing their ordinations. One of the RCWP women kept her ordination secret so she could continue participating in her Roman Catholic congregation as a Eucharistic minister. She later made that ordination public and left the congregation. For women in mainstream denominations, the placements and career trajectory have continued to uphold inequality between male and female clergy. Women are more likely to take a part-time position to coincide with their responsibilities as wives and mothers, an issue regarding women's roles in the church that needs further study. This is driven by the issue that many smaller churches can no longer financially support a full-time clergy person. Many times women will take a position that is not full-time if they also have a partner whose salary can pick up the remaining financial responsibilities. In this study, one of the Episcopal women's positions changed from part-time to full-time in her congregation, as she was supplementing her income by teaching at a local school. The congregation came together and decided they needed all of her time and matched the salary she was making between both positions. This allowed her to focus solely on the congregation and meet her own financial needs. The issues of women's placement have not been fully confronted by the institutional church and needs direct guidance in changing the cultural association of congregations and employing a woman priest. This study supports the concern that women are welcomed as priests in the church, but not in prestigious positions as rectors of large and prominent congregations. Past studies indicate that when a woman is the rector of a parish, it is more likely to be a small parish or in a rural location. The continued issue with inequality of positions also impacts the quality and length of female clergy careers. This study has shown that the careers of women in the Lutheran and Episcopal Church both follow the trend of holding solo positions in smaller congregations. But there are also token leaders, as 2 women participants both rose to prestigious and prominent positions within their traditions. The RCWP women have each discerned their placement, as they do not have a system in place for locating positions in congregations. Their positions usually come out of a previous community that they have worked with and being called by that community to the role of priest. One participant's ministry is in a nursing home and creates a universal service for all the residents. The other 3 women priests each established a community that they lead with other women priests. Locating women in leadership positions throughout the Lutheran and Episcopal Church has greatly improved, although statistically women's status has not improved enough to reach gender parity. Women are disadvantaged in leadership positions within the Lutheran and Episcopal Church, even though both institutions had or currently have a woman presiding bishop. Within the Roman Catholic Womenpriests movement, women are able to serve out their priestly vocation and hold all leadership positions within the organization, which is in direct contrast to the Roman Catholic Church, where all clergy positions are held by men. The ELCA began ordaining women pastors in 1970 and now make up 23% of the ministry. They began ordaining women bishops in 1992. Currently, the ELCA has 6 women bishops, consisting of 4% of all bishops in the United States. The Episcopal Church began ordaining women priests officially in 1976, which now makes up 35% of the priesthood, and they began ordaining women bishops in 1989. The Episcopal Church currently has 15 women bishops, consisting of 9% of all the bishops in the United States. The percentages of female bishops between the 2 denominations are significantly closer compared to the percentage of female priests, but it also shows the relative lack of women serving in executive leadership positions. 2 of the women in this study reflect the growth of women in higher leadership positions as senior female pastors of large congregations, and one of the women has worked in developing mission congregations. For the most part, the women participants have reflected the national statistics of women in leadership positions. Within this study, there was a mixed response to the question of titles. This was an area that was surprising and unexpected. For the Lutheran women, there's no issues of titles, as all clergy, male and female, use the same title of pastor to denote their authority and position. For the Episcopal women, the issue of titles became more substantial and a more passionate tone was detected, as there are gendered titles used throughout the church, such as father and mother. The Roman Catholic Womenpriests, even though they have a similar issue regarding titles as the Episcopal women, generally do not use titles when working within their congregation. The use of titles is not the most critical issue facing women in the church, but it is representative of the difficulties and sexism that plague the church. Many women choose titles that they are comfortable with, including pastor, reverend, their first name, or secular titles such as Miss and Mrs. Some go so far as to insist on being called father to highlight the inequality within the church for female clergy. One vitally important issue that was uncovered was the concept of how clergy receives nurturing for their own soul. There were multiple ways the female clergy within this study have answered this question, from joining clergy groups, carving out time to spend with their partners and families, and networking within their local communities. These methods all provide various outlets to nurture their own evolution as adults and persons of faith. The transitional period for clergy needs to be addressed in seminary to prepare them for the swift change they will encounter upon leaving seminary and entering new placements. The Roman Catholic Womenpriests have faced alternative forms of adjustment and isolation. The challenges RCWP women face are unlike those of the Lutheran and Episcopal women, as they often have to leave communities they've been part of for years. The Roman Catholic Womenpriest participants frequently felt a need to distance themselves from former colleagues, friends, and community events, losing relationships along the way as they begin a new spiritual leadership role within a new community. Some of the women in this study have experienced sexism in the workplace, and others describe various experiences when they encountered sexist situations within the church. Each denomination has policies in place against sexism, but without changing the culture and providing women with more leadership, sexism will continue within the institution and in congregations. Perpetuating the issue of sexism is the rationalization and assumptions of church communities that because women are ordained, there is no longer any sexism. These assumptions are harmful to the denomination, communities, and the women in the church as they excuse sexist behavior and create intolerant environments. One of the participants has reflected back to her denomination that it is not up to each woman to prove their self and credibility through direct experience and contact. Rather, the Church needs to support the gifts of all women as a normative attitude. For the Roman Catholic Womenpriests, they emerge in response to sexism in the Roman Catholic Church. Sexism also affects other areas of women's progress within church denominations that come out of the issue of ordination and continue beyond seminary. These include placement, salary and compensation, and access to leadership positions, as they are a direct product of sexist beliefs, practices, and mentality. A common theme among all the women participants was the way in which women have improved upon traditional church structure to create a more holistic and welcoming environment within the congregation. I believe that the future of the church depends on changing the organizational structure and leadership style. The Roman Catholic Womenpriests have drastically changed the architecture and organization of the traditional hierarchical and clerical concept of church, without losing the important sacramental and liturgical aspects of the Roman Catholic faith. Changing the structure of the church is an intimidating concept for patriarchal church leadership. The structure of a church is a significant portion of church tradition, an argument that the Vatican has made against women's ordination in the Roman Catholic Church. Through developing alternative models of church structure and organization, healthier institutions, both financially and socially, could be achieved. Each denomination has a responsibility to adapt to the changing climate of their surroundings or risk perishing. Throughout this study, many of the participants brought up the term pinking of the church or the feminization of the clergy, especially within the Protestant traditions. Currently, more women are attending seminary than ever before. Roughly half of all seminary students are women, but the number of active female clergy continues to rise much more slowly. All of the data available suggests that although women are increasingly entering ministry, they are not successful in gaining a statistical advantage when it comes to the number of women serving as priests in prestigious or executive positions. Women have moved into more placements within the church, but they have done so increasingly at the lowest level of church placements. Women consistently make, on average, $10,000 less than men per year in the same positions. The younger women in this study fall in the middle of the spectrum, where they are solo rectors and pastors with small and medium-sized congregations and are not rurally located. It may only be conceivable that women's positions within the church will improve when more women are in positions of leadership. The next steps for RCWP should be focused on growing and expanding the organization. Growing communities and reaching out to women who would successfully further the mission of the movement should be a priority. Another area of importance is spreading the message of RCWP. Through the evolution and continued progress, exponential growth will occur as the message is heard more broadly and more individuals are involved. Institutionally, the organization needs to attract members and congregations. This will continue to help locate areas of need in their own communities as well as locations where they could be present. This study fills the gap in the literature by bringing together a multi-denominational study that includes the Roman Catholic Womenpriest movement. The Roman Catholic Womenpriests have not been compared to mainstream Protestant women priests within any qualitative study previously. This study also examines the pioneer generation of women priests with recently ordained women priests to show the advancements that have occurred in the last 50 years. This study is based on and focuses on women's experiences of ordination, while recognizing that women's experience within religious institutions is noticeably variant from that of men. Bridging together the personal with professional understanding of ordination, this study highlights the deeply personal and spiritual understanding of what it means to be a woman priest and recognizes their spiritual authority and leadership in a public sphere. The pioneer generation faced differing attitudes from the church leadership and congregants depending on the denomination. For Lutheran women, there was considerably more acceptance than the Episcopal women. Lutheran women have had a significantly easier time changing the status of women in the church early on, but were also faced with many of the same isolationist difficulties as the Episcopal women. As time went on, the women were able to transform beliefs, but were still faced with many of the same burdens that have plagued women in the workplace, including sexism, lower compensation, and limited opportunities for career advancement. This study has discovered that women who are ordained today have expanded concerns that build upon the original areas of contention surrounding women's ordination. This study is useful to women serving in ministry today, to those in seminary preparing for ministry leadership, and those in academia whose scholarship focuses on the role of women in the church. This study demonstrates that women today are not only facing the continued issues of compensation, but job placement and sexism, but they are also facing issues of diversity that includes acceptance of priests who identify as homosexual, church membership decline, and the Roman Catholic Womenpriests. They're facing radical transformation of the Roman Catholic faith. In conclusion, the career path of the ordained woman never takes the same shape, model, or trajectory. Each journey is unique and has its own hardships and struggles, but also its blessings and fortunes. The 12 women who have generously shared their stories about their personal and institutional experiences within the Lutheran Church, Episcopal Church, and the Roman Catholic Womenpriests movement have each offered guidance, distinction, and authority to the subject. These stories teach us about the earliest days of women's ordination and what those struggles looked like. This study on women's ordination has shown that women's experiences are vital to understanding the future of the Christian church. Women's experience and voices identify areas that need focus and attention to grow and sustain the future of the religious landscape in the United States. Women's voices have been marginalized throughout history, and while there have been many studies about women in ministry over the last 50 years, women continue to face inequality in church structure and practice. This study continues to ask, what else can be done? The women participants have answered this call and provide specific policies and administrative support to acknowledge and then implement concrete changes that will aid in constructing a more equal and affirming church. These areas include continued acceptance of LGBTQ priests and policies, seminary classes that prepare students for real-world experiences of running a nonprofit or small business, which includes managing employees, develop continued support for women in executive leadership positions, and especially within the Episcopal Church, to continue examining the title for women that is non-gendered. These examples will help institutions provide focus for continued efforts to create a warm and welcoming environment for female clergy. This study has also shown that the Roman Catholic Womenpriests movement is offering new methods of providing a worship experience for Roman Catholics. The organization is open and affirms all persons. Their model, like the Episcopal women before them, of radical grace in the face of oppressive policies, has shown that although they have not restored the Roman Catholic Church to an institution based on love and acceptance for all, they are challenging the Church through their own ministries, forcing Roman Catholics to examine their beliefs and behaviors. When the Roman Catholic Church is ready to respond, there are those in place ready to guide them on the path towards inclusivity and acceptance. Thank you. That's it.
I turned on my mic.
Yes, I can hear you. Oh.
All right, would you unmute everybody?
The little unmuting rabbit.
Okay. Marcelle, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You did a really good job condensing everything in your dissertation for your presentation. That was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel you've chosen a very important topic, the ordination of women. The topic of women's spiritual leadership, I feel, is crucial in the world. I think your dissertation will support the spiritual authority of women, the spiritual leadership of women in the Christian church. And this is a topic very close to my heart. I grew up wanting to be a minister or a doctor, but it was not possible for women of my age to enter the ministry. It just wasn't an option. So I just am very happy and delighted to see women being ordained now and moving forward. I also noticed from your longitudinal study that it's been 40, 50 years focusing on this topic of ordination for women in these three Christian denominations, that while progress has been made, it seems to have been slow. So, but I'm comparing this to the slow advance of women into higher education, where the tenure track positions are held over 80% by white men, and then maybe 15% by white women, and very little by men and women of color. And so we can again look at how very slow progress has been made, even in gender balancing and racially balancing the educational faculty. So I just say that if we have had this much progress in 40 years, do you think it might take another generation or 2 generations and to actually reach parity? Or how long, and as an adjunct to that, how long do you think it will take for the Catholic Church to ordain women?
Well, I definitely think it's going to take at least another generation, if not 2, to bring it up to an equivalent parity as priests. Then for executive leadership, I think it's going to be even longer. Although women have found their way into, presiding bishop, the role of presiding bishop in Episcopal and Lutheran denominations, there have only been 1 female presiding bishops for both. So I think, again, it's going to take even longer, to reach parity there. The numbers are about 5%, and I think it was about 4%. So at the executive level. And that's where all the decisions are really made for the whole institution. So that's where I think the focus needs to be even more. And then for Roman Catholics, I have hope, that one day we'll bring in women. Pope Francis has recently, in May, asked for a commission on ordaining women as deacons. But
as deacons?
As deacons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I'm still having the feedback. I don't know if Caitlin can fix that, but thank you. Oh, that helps so much. But so they started a commission for looking at women being ordained as deacons within the Roman Catholic Church. But then he's also hasn't had a very positive attitude towards that. So, again, I don't know what may come of that. I know there's a lot of hope out there for women, but then when you actually talk to the Roman Catholic Womenpriests, they don't necessarily want, oh no, what happened? It went away. Here we go. We're back.
Caitlin, we're not hearing you.
Yeah, their mic hasn't shown up. I wonder if they're trying to get the mic up.
I see, it looks like a camera in
Next
Mara's.
to them. Mm-hmm.
Marcelle, you did a beautiful job of summarizing your dissertation.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
While we're waiting, I didn't write it down. I wrote down the percentage of bishops currently that are female in ECLA and Episcopalian, but I didn't write down the percentage of female priests. And you said it, I just didn't write it.
I'm not muted. For which denomination was that?
The Lutherans and Episcopalians.
The Lutherans and Episcopalians. For the Lutherans, it's 23% are women, and for the Episcopalians, it's 35%.
Wow.
So you can see between the bishops, the percentage is significantly closer together. And then for priests, it's, okay, I'll stop.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
Okay.
Yay.
All right, we're recording again. So I'll ask one more question, Marcelle, and then change over. Well, I think I'll just pass the question on to Elizabeth, if you go next with a question or two.
Sure. While we were waiting, I said to Marcelle how wonderful I thought her presentation was. I thought she did a wonderful job with summarizing everything. Plus, it just showed the depth of what you were really looking at. I think I personally appreciated it because, having that MBA background before I came to this field, the idea of access and looking at it kind of structurally, which I think was a piece of what you were doing, was very interesting. And just comparing, just showing those statistics of percentage of female priests, percentage of female bishops, putting those statistics next to each other in itself was revealing. One question that I did have, and this came out in your findings, is that you were recommending that more statistics get collected or more questions or more studies get done. And you've now looked at the studies that have been done, and I was wondering what you thought some of the most effective questions were in terms of being useful to reveal answers about what the issues around ordination are. Either the questions that you found most useful as you were putting together your own research and findings, or maybe some questions that you wished had been included in one of those studies.
That's an excellent question, because that was actually reflected back to me by the women participants. And as for other studies they would like to see done in their own denominations. So first of all, I would probably say that a study that focuses on women and family and working as a woman priest is very much needed, because there's so many studies are done, and they're looking at compensation, they're looking at placement, they're looking at length of being in that position, they're looking at time to a new position. They're looking at all these things, but they're not looking at how are women working every single day, providing for their family, taking care of their family. And we also know that a lot of women also take care of more of the family as well. I mean, that's hopefully changing. But, one of the women, she said, I took care of my 4 children, and I was also a full-time priest. So I had 2 jobs. She felt like she had 2 jobs. So I would say family, looking at family and looking at that home life component is an area that needs definitely further investigation. But one of the areas and the questions that I asked that surprised me the most, and I thought it was going to be a very simple question. I asked, what do your congregants call you, and what title do they refer to you as? And this question just exploded at me, and I had no idea I was going to expect, the type of response. And as you heard just now, and then in the dissertation, the women are really fighting back, especially within the Episcopal women. They don't want to be called mothers. They want their children to call them mother, but they don't want their congregants to call them mother. They feel that infantilizes the congregation, and that there shouldn't be this gender term, because what happens if you're gender fluid as well? That really puts a gendered stereotype on them. And so they haven't quite found titles. They seem to find them individually, but collectively, as women in the Episcopal Church, they have not found an overall title other than mother, because that's traditionally used, that really encompasses all that they do as a priest. So that was a question that I was very surprised with and continue to be surprised about.
But I think that's an excellent observation, and my guess is that in those kind of classic studies that have already been done, that they don't look at that very much.
No, no.
So don't. I think, just to point out to you, Marcelle, hopefully this will all get published as a book, but if you end up wanting to blog or even make recommendations for future studies to the denominations, that I would just encourage you for like next steps to think about some of these unique things that you've seen that could really help them. Because I know that you came into this with an interest in seeing more awareness, understanding, and ultimately be able to facilitate the lives of women in ordained ministry in these denominations. I have just one other question. It's a biggie, but it doesn't have to be answered at any great length, and it's more just about your opinion. This goes a little bit beyond your dissertation, but you focus this on ordination, and I understand the value of ordination institutionally, if that's what's needed to be in that type of position. But I wondered if your ideas and feelings about ordination might have changed, either through what you saw, if they talked about what it meant for them personally, or what your feelings are about ordination, because this in many ways relates to the RCWP in that, you know, they created this parallel organization specifically around ordination, but now you've really looked at ordained women in these more institutionalized settings. So anything you want to share about that?
Excellent question. I don't know if my opinions changed all that much from my original conception of this study. You know, I was really, you reflected, I was really interested in what ordination was like for these women. But I now more than ever feel very strongly for women's ordination, and that it really does uphold women's spiritual authority, and that I think that needs to be heard even more and seen even more. And I think that the more women who become ordained is just only going to help these institutions. So I am probably even more gung-ho for women's ordination than I was prior to the study. And I personally would really like to see the Roman Catholic Church ordain women inside their organization, because I think that would only enhance the church for the better. I know some of the RCWP women wouldn't want to be part of the current church and the current hierarchy, and that is an issue that they have reflected back. But I think that if women are to participate in the current church, then they would actually be able to change it for the better. So I would say that women should be within the Roman Catholic Church as it is today, or should be within. So yes.
Just to both questions. Thank you.
Well, my comments build on what you just said in terms of the RCWP movement. But you know what? Let me say too, I am so impressed by the comprehensive study, both the text, but then your presentation.
Thank you.
So I just want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you, Teresa.
In terms of, I was thinking about RCWP's relationship with the church, and I know that you, I think they're more in the grassroots movement, I would say, I was just wondering, by virtue of being a part of RCWP, you're seemingly excommunicated. So I'm like going, what is the bridge? Like in actuality, how could a bridge possibly happen? I don't know if it's a conversation, or maybe I was thinking, did it come up with Olivia or Jen? Like, do you know what? Is it because they're parallel, but people are they talking? I guess that's one of my my questions, because I do want to see women ordained in the church. I'm glad that women are being, what is it, being considered to be deacons. But I guess, what did you find out, if anything, in your conversations with them?
I do know that they are having conversations. From my interview with Bishop Johnson, she, she has many connections with the male priests and male bishops, and they have had discussions, and they are in communication. And there are a lot of men within the church that want to see women part of the church, but there is this overarching hierarchy that, has just completely stopped all communication about it and stopped all study. So this new commission is very interesting to see what will happen. It is the third commission, though, to happen. So when you're on number 3, I personally am wondering, like, okay, is this actually going to go somewhere this time? But we shall see. But yes, they are in communication. And I'm not sure what else.
That's okay. You know what? So you're saying, in terms of the commission, are you saying the commission for the women as deacons? In terms of the commissions, are you talking?
I don't know if they're in communication about that commission, but I do know they're in communication about ordaining women. Yes.
Okay. I guess then I know that the major challenge is the institutional hierarchy. I just feel like I just wish we need to think through the bridge, and maybe it's possible with Macy's and Torgeson's work to try to, I don't know, integrate it into some kind of catechetical preaching, or the thing is, the ideas need to infiltrate into the others. So I don't know if you have ideas or if they have ideas, but I really want it to happen in the Catholic Church. So it's like, really, I guess maybe next steps, try to think through, but this commission for the deacons, it's a really good thing.
It is a really good thing. And I was actually I was very, very interested in what the commission was specifically studying. And they are specifically going back to the earliest part of the church. And they're going back to the work that has been done by feminist scholarship, so they're really using what has been done, and now they're going to actually take that and examine that, and I hope they actually use it to move forward. So
see that, now that gives me hope. That gives me chills.
Yeah.
That, what? Okay, so, and under this current pope, there's this different sensibility. So what? Thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah. I do feel there's hope. I use the word hope. So that.
So
you know what I thought was interesting? Oh, I thought pinking of the church was interesting. I had not heard of that.
So maybe you can take a moment to speak to that. But I'm noticing the time, and I'd like to invite Annette Williams to ask a question. Then I think we have to wrap up so we can conclude our work for today.
Right. Very interesting, very informative. An area I know very little about, and I was so surprised that even the mention of Roman Catholic Womenpriests, and that this is a parallel structure. But I was wondering who ordains these priests, the women priests, who gives them their quote unquote authority.
Yeah.
And in what areas do they operate and function? And so I was like, what? Roman Catholic women's priests?
Yeah. So to answer that question, the women have, in 2002 was the first ordinations of these women, and they say that they are apostolically ordained in apostolic succession. And so that means that they had a bishop. I believe it was 2 bishops. A third was supposed to be part of this ceremony, but he was kept away. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about what happened with that. I'll leave that at that. But 2 male bishops who were in good standing with the church ordain these women on a boat on the Danube River, and it was a secret ordination to an extent. There were quite a few people who were invited to participate, but they have kept their names secret, and they have not published these male bishops' names so that they remain in good standing in the church. But then once the women have been ordained, they then can start ordaining their women below them who come after them. And so once they had bishops ordained within the Roman Catholic Womenpriests organization, they continued that apostolic succession. And so they say that the Vatican actually recognizes that their ordinations are valid. They have recognized them as valid. They say they are valid but illicit because they go outside the tradition of the church. So yes, that's an excellent question.
There's some victory there, that it recognizes that they're. Yeah. Thank you.
I didn't realize the church said that they were valid.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought that's what you wrote, and I'm like I was going to ask you about that. They say they're valid, yeah, but they're illicit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because they were the rite of the ceremony was conducted appropriately and within tradition, so they can't take away an ordination that already happened. So that's why they're considered valid, but they break church law, so they're illicit.
Am I correct, Marcelle, that once the church passed the rule that if you did this, the bishop and the people who were getting ordained are automatically excommunicated? So I think at a certain year they're no longer valid for any bishop that might try to do this, but for that one and a couple others, they were valid.
Right. So all of the women have been excommunicated, and they're excommunicated automatically at this point. So
yeah.
So you have to have your own feelings about what excommunication means, and then the women discern that in the process. So, yeah.
Yeah, we need the Roman Catholic Church to repent of sexism.
Yes.
Very well said, Teresa. Very well said. So, well, very good. I want to bring this to our next step. You've done an excellent job of presentation. The committee has been pleased with your work, and now we want to confer out without you hearing us whether we think you passed your oral defense.
Okay.
So if you could ring off and then come back in within, say, 4 minutes.
What I can do, Marcelle, is I can also give you a phone call giving you the clear to come back in if that works.
Why don't we do that? Because I don't want to come in too early. Right. So I got my phone right here, so I'm waiting.
Got it.
Okay.
If I could ask the rest of you to leave.
Is she going to sign off or just leave the room?
Here, I'm gonna kick you off. There she is.
Hello.
Yay.
Well, welcome back, Marcelle.
Thank you.
Wait 1 minute. Okay. So, Marcelle, your committee has decided that you have passed your oral defense of your dissertation, and that we also pass you on your written dissertation with some minor revisions. And so we want to congratulate you and celebrate you as joining the ranks of, I want to call it the Sisterhood of Women's Spirituality Doctorates, and welcome you as a new member of the PhD community of scholars. And so congratulations and all the best, and many blessings to you and your baby and your family and your work in the future.
Dr. Marcelle.
So congratulations, Dr. Marcelle Williams.
I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a final word from the committee members?
Just Marcelle, you know how much I love you, and I'm so thrilled that we interact in other ways so that our lives stay connected. but just seeing you step into your fullness as a scholar, as a leader, as a voice for women's equality across all these Christian traditions, it was just a joy to see you in your true authority in your center. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Marcelle, I'm going to push you and maybe push us together to kind of rethink or to help RCWP maybe reflect on, reframe how can RCWP's mission, help move in terms of a grassroots level but I'm so pleased. I'm so happy. It was so comprehensive and you did such a good job. And I didn't say, I loved the way you weaved the testimonies.
Oh,
it was beautiful. Given all those testimonies, it was beautiful the way you weave them together.
Thank you so much.
Marcelle, I have to go teach, so I love you. I will see you tomorrow at our meeting.
Okay, see you then.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
It was beautiful. You're beautiful. Oh my God! Congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much.
So, Mara, can I tell you one more thing?
Sure.
I just want to thank you for also being, a pioneering woman in our field. I consider you equal, to Karen Torgerson. So I just wanted to say that. I mean, I just want to recognize that just in terms of your spiritual leadership and educational leadership. I just wanted to thank you for that. I think she went away.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
That's okay. Oh my gosh, it's been a full time.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
The baby's beautiful?
Yes, he's doing well. He's going to be 3 months old tomorrow.
Well, amen for that.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it's been 3 whole months. But,
well,
yeah.
Well, I'm happy, Marcelle. Yeah, if we can think of ways, to kind of, and I'm a social justice person, so it's like to think about ways that we can actually, because the historical context, I mean, it's so sound. And I was just like going, it's the institutional church. So I know it needs to happen grassroots, but if we were excommunicated,
right.
I'm like, how is that going to happen? But you know what? I'm interested in I haven't had conversations with Olivia in the last year and a half, so I would love to go visit her and see what she says.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting what they're doing, and one of the communities is actually in our neighborhood, so I keep meaning to go. I'm like, I need to go, but
no, you need to take care of the little one.
Yes, that has definitely been a full-time job.
At least they're there, yeah?
Yes.
When you can.
Yeah.
So, okay, I gotta go too.
Okay, I don't know if they're coming back or not, but
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I love you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send you and Elizabeth the email about Rosemary.
Okay, yes, do that. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'll share that with the group too. Great.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.